Hey guys, Michelle the Big Cheese. I'm coming at you with part 3 in the series about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And I told you guys I was going to read excerpts from it. And what we left off in part 2 was about perception. Stephen Covey, the author of the book, and his wife Sandra were trying to figure out how to deal with their son, who they finally realized they saw him as the misfit that other people were seeing him as, but they had tried to cover it up with what most of us do. Good job. Keep it up. This and that. I'd encourage you to listen to part 2 and hear about the issues they were having. But now I wanted to get to the solution. Now, what happened here is Stephen Covey had done research going 200 years back on how society viewed success. And in his findings, he found that the first 150 years or so was based off of what we would call the character ethic. And that thinking basically said there are basic principles of effective living, such as integrity, humility, fidelity, temperance, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty, and the golden rule. As long as people applied these principles to their life, they could truly have success and enduring happiness as they integrated these into their basic character. But then as he further studied, he realized that after World War I, there was a shifting from the character ethic into what he calls the personality ethic. And this is what we're more familiar with. Success became more a function of personality, of public image, of attitudes and behaviors, skills and techniques that lubricate the processes of human interaction. This personality ethic essentially took 2 paths. One was human and public relations techniques, and the other was positive mental attitude, PMA. Now, some of this philosophy, what came from this were expressions like, your attitude determines your altitude. Smiling wins more friends than frowning. And whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Okay. Now, other parts of the personality ethic he found were clearly manipulative, even somewhat deceptive, because they encourage people to use techniques to get over on people, to kind of fake an interest in someone else's hobbies or what they wanted, and almost kind of intimidate their way through life. Now, the personality ethic, he began to realize, was the subconscious source of the solutions that him and his wife were attempting to use with their son. He thought more deeply about the difference between the personality and character ethics, and he realized that him and his wife had been getting social mileage out of their children's good behavior. And in their eyes, the son simply didn't measure up. Remember, we were reading that what he found that him and his wife were giving off were, son, you really aren't capable. You need to be protected. When he wasn't doing good on the baseball field, keep at it, son. You can do it. And when others teased him, they would reprimand him. Leave him alone. That was giving off the sense that he needed to be protected. Now, our image of ourselves and our role as good, caring parents was even deeper than our image of our son, and perhaps influenced it. So let me read that again. Listen closely. He was saying the image that him and his wife had of themselves and their role as the good and great caring parents, that was deeper than the image of their son. And that way of thinking was influencing what they were doing. There was a lot more wrapped up in the way they were seeing and handling the problem than for the concern for their own son's welfare. Now that's deep, guys. As Sandra and I talked, we became painfully aware of the powerful influence of our own character and motives and our perception of our own son. We knew that social comparison motives were out of harmony with our deeper values and could lead to conditional love and eventually to our son's lessened sense of self-worth. So we determined to focus our efforts on us, not on our techniques, but on our deepest motives and our perception of our son. Now, listen, instead of trying to change him, we tried to stand apart, to separate us from him, and to sense his identity, individuality, separateness, and worth. Through deep thought and the exercise of faith and prayer, we began to see our son in terms of his own uniqueness. We saw within him layers and layers of potential that would be realized at his own pace and speed. We decided to relax and get out of his way and let his own personality emerge. We saw our natural role as being to affirm, enjoy, and value him. I got to stop right here. I'm sorry. You know Big Cheese love the kids, okay? I have a heart. I took Montessori training. I believe in following the child, and I really eventually one day I'm going to open a Montessori school, and I want to empower the parents to don't be caught up in the traditional ways of do as I say, but rather we as parents, we need to model how we are in front of our children. We need to model how we want them to behave. You don't say don't smoke and you're smoking. What's the message sending? Okay, that's off track, but I'm trying to get to a point here. So, we saw our natural role as being to affirm, enjoy, and value him. I love that. We also conscientiously worked on our motives, and we cultivated internal sources of security so that our own feelings of worth were not dependent on our children's acceptable behavior. What? What does that mean? What he's saying is they began to look at their own motives and their internal reasonings of where they were finding their security. See, they were letting their security come from the worth that their children were giving off to other people. In other words, worrying about what other people thought instead of putting the child and who his uniqueness and who he was first. A lot of us do that, guys. As we loosened up our old perception of our son and developed value-based motives, new feelings began to emerge. We found ourselves enjoying him instead of comparing or judging him. We stopped trying to clone him in our own image or measure him against social expectations. We stopped trying to kindly, positively manipulate him into an acceptable social mold. Because we saw him as fundamentally adequate and able to cope with life, we stopped protecting him against the ridicule of others. Okay, this guy uses a lot of big words. They saw him as being able to handle himself and to stand on his own 2 feet. Therefore, they backed off all that protection and that hovering that they were doing when other people would ridicule. He had been nurtured on this protection. So he went through some withdrawal pains, which he expressed and which we accepted, but did not necessarily respond to. We don't need to protect you, son, was the unspoken message. You're fundamentally okay. You're all right, man. You got this. That was Big Cheese adding that part. As the weeks and months passed, and we're almost done for this video, He began to feel a quiet confidence and affirmed himself. He began to blossom at his own pace and speed. He became outstanding as measured by standard social criteria, academically, socially, and athletically, at a rapid clip, far beyond the so-called natural development process. As the years passed, he was elected to several student body leadership positions, developed into an all-state athlete, and started bringing home straight A report cards. He developed an engaging and guileless personality that has enabled him to relate in non-threatening ways to all kinds of people. Sandra and I believe that our son's socially impressive accomplishments were more a serendipitous expression of the feelings he had about himself than merely a response to social reward. Okay, what does all that mean? And you guys in your little journal, you might want to be writing these words down and look them up. Okay? What he's saying is the son's so-called social impressive accomplishments that, society got, the star athlete, the straight A's, all these, socially accepted. It wasn't the fact that, this is why I couldn't summarize the book. I had to read it straight out. So I'm just going to read it again because I don't know. Sandra and I believe that our son's socially impressive accomplishments were more an expression of the feelings he had about himself than merely a response to social reward. In other words, he was confident in who he was. That's how he was able to go forth and do all those great things. He wasn't conforming to the way society looked at what was great and impressive. He had it in him, and he developed and catapulted into that person because the parents allowed him to develop in his way. Oh, I did summarize it. That was good. Okay. It brought to our awareness on a very personal level the vital difference between the personality ethic and the character ethic of success. The psalmist expressed our conviction well. Search your own heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life. I need to look that scripture up for you guys so you can reference that. But I'm ending that today. You guys, I do want to tell you, most people do not watch longer than 3 or 4 minutes on a video. This is not really meant to be watched, guys. The purpose of this series is to record something that you can listen to, almost like an audio book, but with just a little of the Big Cheese flavor, and some summaries here and there because this book is thick, and I'm trying to basically share with you what I'm getting from it without actually reading the whole book. But as you will see, which makes the videos long, a lot of it, I want to use Stephen Covey's words. I want to read straight from the book so you can really feel the impact of how powerful this book is. And you can see you. You can see how you do things, and you are going to change. How do you know that you're doing something wrong unless someone showed you what's right? Okay, guys. Big Cheese signing out. Have a good day. Remember, follow your dreams. Get the mindset right. And watch yourself soar like an eagle. All right, guys. Bye-bye.